So very conscious of time now, and I'm sorry we've run over to our guests. We will be talking with Transport for London at our next meeting in quite a lengthy and serious way about safety, because that is one of the sections that obviously impacts passengers, but which the solutions are in TfL's hands. But we have Dan here today, and so we wanted to ask a few questions to him as a former driver, particularly about bus safety. So Assembly Member Prince is going to ask those questions.
Thank you, Chair. Dan, if you want to find you over there, yeah. We were hoping to have a chat with John Murphy, but he hasn't deemed to turn up. I don't know if you've had a chance to read the bus action plan, but even if you haven't, what areas do you think could be taken, or what actions could be taken to improve bus drivers' welfare?
Yes, well, if I might just say a few words on behalf of bus drivers at London. Just bear with me a minute. Yeah, drivers should be trained to handle difficult or efficient passengers, because they're a form of stress. I mean, you can be having a wonderful day, speaking out and say good morning to everybody, and then one person gets on that's agreed or something. It's a special skill. I mean, some people can handle no problem at all, but it's a special skill needed to handle an angry person. And if that driver can't cope with that angry person, it can spoil his day. It can cause stress, but that's just one of the things. Bus drivers' wages are low, and many drivers have to work rest days and overtime to pay for essentials. Bus drivers' work conditions are poor, with some drivers having their meal break on the street and may have to queue for a street toilet cubicle, would you believe? With early starts and late finishes, bus driving can be quite stressful. And some companies are trying to introduce remote sign-on, which would make the situation worse. So low wages and working conditions, drivers are always looking for better paid jobs, which is the situation at the moment. The companies all over London are finding it difficult to find bus drivers, because in London everything's expensive, and they're having to get drivers in from outside of London, so they have to travel in. And now the price of diesel's going up. That's getting more and more expensive for those outside of London drivers coming in. There's a lot of stress involved, and timetables are stressful. If you can't keep the time, you're looking at your watch, and it's an invisible pressure, if you like. It just creeps up on you. You say, oh, I'm late. I better try and keep moving. Oh, I'm late. And it's just it's little stressful things can build up through the day. And if we can have some sort of system, whereas we don't need a strict timetable. I mean, once buses set away from the terminus, as long as the buses are a certain gap apart, according to the frequency requirements, those buses should keep moving until they get to the other end. To keep people moving, it's more satisfying for everybody, for the drivers and the passengers, for the bus to keep moving if possible. But of course, if you're stuck in traffic, well, we need more planning for bus priority lanes. We'll come back on that and see what happens.
Thank you. That's quite helpful. If we just ask about fatigue, what do you think could be done to help reduce driver fatigue? We've seen this as a big problem.
Yes, bus drivers are having to work more than they want to. As I've just mentioned, they feel have to work rest days and overtime, and it makes a long day, especially if they're travelling in from out of London. They've got to travel into work and then travel back again. They're not seeing their family life. They're going out early in the morning, they're going out all day, trying to find somewhere to get the break, trying to find somewhere to eat and find a toilet and all that. And then they get home at night at 10 o'clock, 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and sometimes they don't see their children on some weeks because it's it's just stressful.
What do you think about shift patterns? Does that contribute to the fatigue?
Well, yes, it's always been a problem. You've got to get up 2 or 3 o'clock now, or 4 o'clock in the morning to start on the early shift. And I mean, you start off at the beginning of the week, it's all right, but by the time you get to the middle of the week, it's quite tiring. And if you think you've got to work overtime as well, that's very stressful and tiring and could cause fatigue. And I've even been in a situation where I've had to stop the bus and put the handbrake on, stop the bus, put the hazard lights on, and get out the bus and check the hazard lights. I literally walk around the bus, get some air to my lungs, and wake up fully, and then say, "Oh, right, I can carry on again now." It's sometimes quite stressful and tiring, and perhaps part of the driver's training should be to help them cope with this kind of situation, because it's not natural to get up 2 or 3 o'clock one week, and then the next week you don't start till 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you work until 1 o'clock in the morning. It's just not a natural pattern for a human being, and perhaps they should be taught to try and cope with this stressful situation, because stress is like an invisible disease, and you don't know it until something goes wrong. You don't know you've got it. Stress is not good for anybody.
Right, this flipping of shift patterns, I think, is a real problem when you go from, say, you're doing earlies on one shift pattern and then you go to lates, and there's no break in between. That can be very difficult for your body clock. What advice does the bus garage give you in relation to if you're feeling really tired, if you're feeling fatigued? For me, sometimes I get that after lunch or something, and I just need 5-10 minutes just to sort myself out and have a lower power nap for 5-10 minutes. What do the bus companies give you advice if you're feeling a bit fatigued? Do they give you any advice on that at all?
Well, a general form is, are you feeling ill, driver? Do you need to go home? Do you need to go off sick? We need to get this bus out. We're trying to keep the bus on time, but there's more pressure put on them to make a move. But if they say, "Well, I'm not feeling very well. I need a few minutes to have a cup of tea and recover," then you'll have to tell them, "Well, I'm just not well enough to go out." You'll have to put somebody else on it, or if there's nobody else available, which is often the case, that bus will just have to go missing. But it's not a straightforward situation. The drivers are generally, I mean, they're not forced, but they're generally put under pressure to try and keep the service going, which is understandable. But I suppose it's up to the driver to make his case clear, and if he's not well, then he should stop and have a cup of tea and then decide whether he needs to go sick or not, as the case may be.
All right, but there's no actual guidance as such. You can't just say, "Look, I need another 5 minutes," or "I need 10 minutes at the end of the route," because sometimes, from the evidence I've heard in the past, and I'm not putting words into your mouth, but you get to the end of the route, but because you're so far behind, you really don't get the break that you should get, and you have to turn it round straight away. I mean, is there any advice or that you're given to say, well, yes, you should do that if you can, but if you actually do need that 5 or 10 minutes just to de-stress, to just recover, what's the advice you're getting on that?
Well, you're quite right. That happens quite frequently when the traffic delays or holding the bus up. You get to the terminus late, and they might call you, the controller might call you up on the radio and say, "Dan, the service is running a bit late in front. Can you go to a quick turnaround and just go straight out again?" And well, I mean, the experienced drivers will say, "Well, I'm not feeling full of energy at the moment. It's been a long day, and I'm tired, and I need 2 or 3 minutes to recover. I need to get up this seat, have a walk around and check the bus, and then I'll be ready to go again." So it's really down to the driver. The driver's put under this invisible pressure, if you like, to try and keep the service going on time. But if he can't, it's up to the driver to say, "Well, look, I need me 2 or 3 or 4 minutes, whatever, to recover from that last journey." It's really all down to the driver to communicate with the controller and tell them the situation. Some drivers are all right. They say, all right, yes, I'm fine with that. I'll turn around and go straight out again. And quite often, if you're a fit and healthy person, I mean, but I think a bus driver should be fit and healthy. I always try to keep myself fit and healthy. If I was all right, I would say, well, okay, I'll just do what I've got to do. I'll change the destination, do me writing, any lost mileage, and then I'll go straight out. But some new drivers might feel under pressure to go straight out rather than have a break if they're feeling tired. They don't want to come out and admit it. It's all down to communication, really. And it's usually down to the driver to say, well, look, I can go straight out for you, or no, I can't go straight out. I've got to have 2 or 3 minutes to recover. I've got to get up, get some ambulance, and it's all down to the driver. There's just invisible pressure to keep the service going. And if the driver doesn't say anything, then it's assumed that he's all right. He can keep going.
Okay, I'm getting a very clear picture that sorry, mate. I'm getting a very clear picture that you are under extreme pressure at times. Have you ever had the misfortune, I phrase it that way, of being on a route where there's no toilets?
Yes, I've had to inquire controller or driver. We can't find any toilets around you at the moment. Can you continue until you get such and such? Well, you know the situation. If you've been waiting for a long time, you need to go. You need to go. And sometimes you just have to. You know there's a toilet there. You just have to park the bus and say, "Sorry about the delay, folks. I just have to go to the toilet. I just have to park the bus up, put the hazard lights on, and go." But you don't always get the help that you need from the controllers. And some routes, it's difficult to find a toilet even when you're on your break. You might find a toilet cubicle in one of these metal structures, a small cubicle, and a small hand wash basin. And sometimes that's all you have to prepare yourself for the start of your break. And then sometimes you have to find somewhere to have your break, a short meal or a couple of sandwiches or whatever. It's sometimes finding a toilet can be a problem, which can add to the stress again.
Not wanting to go into any great detail, but what advice did the bus company give you if they know that you're on a route that doesn't have toilets provided? What do they suggest you do?
They generally suggest you find your own toilet and your own time, or you try and keep the service going. But if you have to go, it's up to the driver again to communicate and tell them, well, I found a toilet and I need to go. I'll have to take a toilet break. And here's a message on the iBus system. You can send a message and let them know you have to have a toilet break. But not always drivers can take advantage of that. The feel is invisible pressure, if you like. They must keep the service going. There's nobody forced to do this, but sometimes it seems to end up that way. If you know what I mean.
Just very quick, is that, do you leave the bus with passengers on it then when you go for the toilet break if it's not scheduled?
Well, not usually, but if you've got no other options, then you might be forced or might feel forced into doing that.
Okay, thank you. One other point, how much priority do you think that the bus companies give to actual safety, and do they give you training on safety? Do they say that, again, I don't want to try and put words in, but do they say that safety is paramount and that, okay, if the bus is running 5 minutes late, that's okay because safety is priority? How much priority do they give to safety? How many times have they sat you down and said, right, safety's our number one issue, vision zero, and also perhaps you could throw this in to save a bit of time. What have they told you about vision zero?
Sorry, vision zero, can you expand that?
Are you, well, I think you've answered the question actually. Are you aware of TfL's vision zero? And it's not a trick question, it's actually, just Has the bus company made you aware of TfL's Vision Zero?
Yeah, I remember catching sight of that on the bus plan, but I didn't actually go into that. Sorry, but yeah, the safety. They do tell you that safety is paramount. If you feel the bus is unsafe, then you must report this. But at the same time, sometimes the drivers say, "Well, look, I feel this bus is unsafe, and I'd like to wait for assistance." They sort of put that sort of invisible pressure on you. If you like, well, it's your decision, driver. Are you refusing to drive this bus, or can you keep going? And it's like a hint of invisible pressure, if you like. But they do say it in words that safety comes first, and if there's a problem with the bus, report it. And drivers often do report these things, and sometimes they don't appear to get fixed because they get the bus the next year or next week and they find this bus still has the same problem. But if it's a safety issue, then again, it's up to the driver to communicate that to the controller or whoever you're speaking to and say, "Well, look, I'm the driver of this bus. I feel this bus is unsafe and I don't want to take it any further. Or I'll try and get it safely to the next bus terminus, say drive safely, put the hazard on." If that's the case, you can. Yeah, I'll try and get it to the next terminus, but I need another bus out. And then, but it's up to the driver again. It's all about communication. It's often left down to the driver, and the driver often feels this invisible pressure to keep going.
Okay, so just for clarity, in your opinion, do you think that they believe safety to be paramount, or keeping the bus going? In your opinion, what would you say they put the priority on, safety or keeping the bus running?
Well, that's a tricky question. They always say bus safety is important, but they also say keeping the bus moving, keeping the bus on time is important. So it's a bit 50-50. They try and throw it in the hands of the driver, which is that invisible pressure again. So they're doing all the right thing, but they don't always do the maintenance on minor things, which can be annoying and can build up pressure. Little defects on the bus, like the bus is something wrong with the bus, it's slow, it won't accelerate, and it can cause problems at junctions. And the driver can call in and report this and say, "Well, look, I'm not feeling safe with this. I can't get away from junctions very quickly because the bus is slow." Or if you're in outside London, it might be on a section of road which may 40 or 50 mile an hour on the outside of London, and you're struggling to get 20-25 mile an hour, and you may feel it's unsafe. And you report this, and they say, "All right, we'll report that. Put it on your log sheet, you're on your report card." And then next week you get the same bus again. It's the same problem. Nothing's been done with it.
Okay, I'm really sorry. It is my job as chair to get us all out of this meeting within the next 2 minutes. So I want to say thank you. I'm aware there were a couple of assembly members waiting to ask supplementaries, and that we want to hear from the passenger groups, particularly about any points on safety in respect of what's in the bus action plan and the wider Vision Zero. If there's anything you want us to put to TfL at the next meeting, please get in touch.